Should come with a sigh warning. You're going to find yourself sighing in confusion and perhaps even rolling your eyes. There might be a lot of eye rolling. Bleeding Fool article, Why Ta-Nehisi Coates Steve Rogers is Fighting White Racists Again. Sadly, the personal narrative of a black man who hates white Americans was once again on display in last week's Captain America 13 by Ta-Nehisi Coates. The latest appearance of the Watchdogs, a right-wing domestic terrorist group, because Antifa's in the news and they're right. Oh wait, no, they're not. They're not right wing, are they? They're left wing domestic terrorism. So he's fighting the right wing domestic terrorist group with new costumes emblazoned with bigotry. Half of the Confederate flag emblem is only the latest commentary on race in your funny books from someone who thinks anyone who didn't vote for Obama must be a racist. There must certainly be a very large portion of comic book consumers that likes to read about spandex with heavy doses of political social justice because Marvel has been cranking it out lately. It started long before they hired Coates, however. Most of our readers have insisted that the intersectionality of social justice and commerce at which superhero comics exist these days is becoming a place they no longer want to go. Why would they? And they won't be sharing these titles and once beloved properties with their younger siblings, friends, or children. I was thinking to myself, kid picks up this book, reads it, he's not going to recommend it to anyone. It's not recommended for anyone. Of course, everyone knows this isn't the first time Captain America has been used as political propaganda, but where golden, silver, and bronze age comic writers are just far better at subtlety. Oh, were they far better at subtlety? It's awkward that these in-your-face political narratives have become an overused trope at this point and just a bit too on the nose in such a politically divided country. Come on, Marvel, hasn't Captain tussled with racist white right-wing bigots at least 3 times in the past few years? Does Marvel care even more? No, because Marvel's not interested in making money selling a fun property. They're just interested in selling propaganda. But they don't even do it that well because the stuff doesn't sell that well. Here's what Editor-in-Chief C.B. Cebulski had to say to the press when he hired Coates to take over Captain America. He said, "I'm a complete idiot. I hate America, and I want to see Marvel go up in flames." Something like that. He said, "Finding the right voice to tell the tales of Marvel's beloved characters is never an easy task." Well, you should have picked anyone but him. But when it came time to hire, you could have picked Mark Waid. It probably would have been pretty much the same thing. Came time to hire the new hand to guide Captain America. We just knew it had to be Ta-Nehisi Coates. Have you read his Twitter lately? I'm sure it's archived if you're curious. After reinventing the Black Panther for the modern era, Ta-Nehisi now brings his sharp scripting sensibilities to Steve Rogers and his new place in the Marvel Universe. The artists are bringing out all the incredible action, big bold. You'll not be able to put this book down. Yeah, because you're not able to pick the book up, because it's going to stay on the shelves for a long, long time. Our launch is timed perfectly for the release on the 4th of July. Okay. Usually people who celebrate the 4th of July are people who are pretty glad to live in America. They're the land of opportunity. Their ancestors came here and they're pretty happy with the place. And, any place could use improvements and they strive to make it better, but they don't actually hate America. Captain America is a comic that actually hates America. The ongoing title is Coates' 4th comic book series since only joining Marvel in 2016. His Black Panther was first, which then renumbered in 2018, and his World of Wakanda and Black Panther and the Crew were both canceled due to exceptionally low sales. Shocking revelation. In fact, Captain America isn't exactly burning up the sales charts either, selling around 35 issues to stores each month. Okay, let me tell you, younger folks or people who are just getting into comics used to sell really well. They used to be part of American culture. They used to be in people's homes. They used to get in kids' rooms. Everyone had comics. They'd pass them around. They used to be recommended to people. Kids would talk about them. To sell 35,000. And okay, I'm talking about back in the 80s when the population was many, many millions less. You're selling 35,000 issues in a country with 1/3 of a billion people. Something is very, very wrong with your business model here. That's far more than the 20,000 issues or so that Black Panther is moving each month. Okay, Black Panther was a $1 billion movie. I mean, it did amazing in the theaters. Didn't do well overseas because, but yeah, it wouldn't do well in China because Chinese are very, they have their certain beliefs. But it did well in the United States because it was, one, it's a Marvel movie, and two, it was a big budget movie with huge actors. It made a ton of money. It's a huge name. Everybody knows the name. I don't know when it came, when it come out, a year ago, 2 years ago, and it's going to get a sequel that'll probably do even better. So the comic kids should be running into the stores and saying, "Hey, I want to buy a comic that's like the movie." Like they go into stores and want to buy Iron Man and the Hulk and say, oh yeah, I assume I'm going to buy a comic that's similar to the movie. Why wouldn't you capitalize on that? To say you're selling 20,000 copies for a movie that was such a huge, huge success, it's like you snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. It's no wonder, since Mr. Cebulski's July 4th enthusiasm wasn't shared by many comic book fans. Last year, just some guy, a popular YouTube personality who also happens to be black, had the following to say: "Are you ready for the wokeness? This book is just bad." In the latest issue in stores last week, Steve Rogers and his crew argue whether it's morally right to intervene in the activities of a Confederate flag-wearing far-right terrorist group called the Watchdogs and their harassment of Latin American illegal border crossers. Illegal border crossers. Who's the bad guys here? Captain America is the bad guys. This doesn't make any sense. Would you go to Japan and tell the Japanese that the South Koreans are not allowed to invade? And you'd call the Japanese the bad people? This is insane. This is just absolutely insane because, I mean, obviously it's insane, but the thing is, it only applies against America. They don't seem to, I mean, would you go to China and tell I'll say the opposite. Like, actually what China did was when they took a little excursion into Vietnam after the French left, and the Americans left, and the Chinese decided to take a little walk through. But the Vietnamese showed the Chinese that they were not welcome. Say you were around back then, would you go to Vietnam and tell the Vietnamese that the Chinese need to allow the Chinese into Vietnam for diversity? And that the Vietnamese people wanting to keep Vietnam are racist. They're the racist bad guys because they don't want China involved in Vietnam. No, that's insane. This is insane. You guys are the bad guys. You can be forgiven if you've confused this bigoted right-wing militia with the other one from 2016, where Captain America was protecting illegal immigrants from bigoted Trump-worshipping conservatives. That was the Sons of the Serpent. Yet the only white supremacist gang in America right now is Antifa. They are literally a white supremacist, violent terrorist organization. And the comic industry has no issue with them. Get in focus whatsoever. Or maybe you thought I was referring to the Rampart, that group of white supremacists again. Villains. Where are these white supremacists? I haven't met any. We meet in Captain America 695, but that was only 18 months ago. No, okay, let me take that back. Of course there are. Of course there are white supremacists. There are bad white people. There are Nazis and communists and bad Latinos and bad Africans and bad Arabs. And yeah, that's the point, is that everyone has the shitheels in their group. There are bad people in every group. And when you just simply focus on the few white supremacists in America, America is a diverse melting pot. It is not full of white supremacists. There are more black nationals than there are white nationalists. Even the ADL came out and said that. Except that fact seems to just go completely overlooked. In the past several years, you had 3 white supremacist gangs. Trump is not some Nazi. He's not even that much of a conservative. Maybe, and thus extending that to his supporters, they're also not fascists. Maybe Marvel only does the racist bigot villain trope every third arc. These watchdogs do sound familiar. It's because they, Sharon Carter reminds us in the issue, have been a thorn in America's side before. The group first showed up in 1987. They also turned up in recent seasons Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV series. Oh, God. This is so... It's like you talk about everything but the elephant in the room. Maybe some writers occasionally send an email to editorial asking, find me another established group of white bigots that are already canon so I can use them as my villain for the next 6 months. This is so dumb. And I think it's just this dumb, bad, lazy writing. Coincidentally, the Watchdog's original appearance was also during an era when Steve Rogers also upped the Captain America identity. Back then, it was because he didn't agree with the U.S. Commissioner's plan for him. The organization gave the gear to John Walker. Instead, he worked with Hoskins as his Bucky. Now, Coates and Marvel have devolved the once beloved Sentinel of Liberty from being a fascist American traitor, Hail Hydra, to an anti-hero who openly denounces America. But what do you expect from a writer who insists that the election of Donald Trump was a result of, you guessed it, racism? So millions of people in America are racist. Of course they are. Sure. Is this sort of straight-up anti-white racism now within the acceptability of ideological funny books under Marvel's new lifestyle brand? Yes, of course it is. Funny how it's always conservative right-wing villains and racism now. Where are the environmentalist terrorists, the left-wing terrorist groups like ISIS, or even some misguided Antifa fascists? There are plenty of established characters that fit those bills. We just don't hear from them anymore. She admits that she's sneaking in illegal immigrants to a sovereign nation that, wouldn't be acceptable in any nation on earth. In fact, Mexico has a fence on their southern border to keep the Guatemalans out. So I guess Mexico is racist. That's the Mexicans are racist. Hashtag. There seems to be a trend in the publishing and entertainment world to revere and promote radical black voices like Coates, and Marvel Comics has fallen prey to this temptation as they lurch further and further to the left in their ideas, creativity, and hiring practices. It's as if the anger within Coates itself is worthy of respect, and his expression of outrage, no matter how vicious, brazen, ignorant, or racist, are markers of authenticity. Unfortunately for Marvel, most people who read comic books that aren't steeped in this kind of ideology read Coates' words and see something else: anger, hatred, and ignorance. Reading this, it's not fun. It kind of leaves me with a sick feeling to just, it's like, I imagine what it would be like. These people at Marvel, Ta-Nehisi Coates, they are what you would feel if you went to a KKK meeting or some kind of literal Nazi meeting or Antifa meeting. The hatred that those groups share, it's all the same. It doesn't matter if it's Louis Farrakhan or any identitarian group, whether it's white, brown, or black, that kind of just that vicious, vile hatred. It's hard to read, man. It's just sick. It's sick. It's not, have these people ever laughed in their life at anything? Maybe, found a person of the other race and talked to them. Maybe find out that they're also human beings, They like the same things. They like to drink beer and eat tacos, and they definitely will bleed the same color. There's a man who, when asked by Stephen Colbert if there was any hope for America, he said no. Is America perfect? No, of course not. Of course not. But it started with a great idea, and they worked towards increasing liberty for more people. Americans didn't start slavery, but they ended it. European people didn't start slavery, but they ended it. There's still slavery in the Middle East and Africa. People don't seem to talk about that. Shouldn't we be talking about that? Shouldn't it be a global push to end, at least start with sex slavery? Say, hey, maybe we should stop sex trafficking in Eastern Europe and Africa and the Middle East. Why don't we stop? Why don't we stop with that? Because the problem is, you start talking about slavery in the Middle East and sex trafficking, then you come up against Islam. And you say, well, it's these people's belief that child brides like, well, the feminists and I don't know, I guess the libertarians would say, well, child brides is you're marrying a girl off before she's a woman, she has no say in her future. She has no say in her reproductive rights. So the feminists in America are all about reproductive rights. They don't believe those rights apply to women in the Middle East because they're under Islam. So you come up with this immovable force, meeting a brick wall of feminism versus Islam. It's like, would you really believe in women's rights? Then you can't support Islam because they do not believe in women's rights. But I see I've digressed. He sees it. White supremacy is so foundational to America. The thing is, the English who founded America, they're almost all gone. America has been replaced by, Europeans from all over Europe, Eastern Europe, Southern Europe, Northern Europe, Russia, all over the world. All these original English people and these tiny, tiny fraction of people who lived in the South, the Englishmen who lived in the South and owned slaves, they're mostly not, you can't even find their ancestors today. The rest of us, came from all over the world, and we came recently. We have no connection to this kind of thing. We don't feel supreme over anyone because we have always been treated as subhuman in our home countries. So you're blaming people who have no connection to the people you're trying to blame. They're dead. They're dead for 100 years. And progressive publishers like Marvel Comics seem to have decided that it is Ta-Nehisi Coates' job to use their funny books and superheroes to teach us all there is to know about white racism in America. This is the same writer that criticizes dead pop idols' fashion choices? How dare you talk about Michael Jackson? How dare you? How dare you talk about him in his one glove? That was, believe it or not, that in his jackets, those were popular in the 80s. People wore those jackets with all the zippers on them because Michael Jackson was very, very cool in the 80s and the 90s. And the Jackson 5. Or attacks outspoken hip-hop artists' political choices. They hate it when a black man leaves the plantation. They hate red-pilled Africans. It drives them insane. And it's awesome that there's a growing red pill movement among African Americans. They are just wonderful. Kanye West, red pilled African Americans don't want to become white. They realize, hey, these far left democratic plantation ideals, democratic run cities are the worst cities in America. These far left cities, they suck. They're garbage. It hasn't worked. It hasn't helped. All it's done is kept the blacks in ghettos. That's all it does. We're going to continue welfare, and we're going to keep you in the ghettos, and we're not going to educate you because we really don't want you. Because once you get educated, you're probably going to become conservative, and we can't have that. We can't have you voting conservative. So we're going to keep you in the ghettos, listen to rap music, keep doing drugs, just keep voting Democrat. Kanye West doesn't want to become white. Black people do not want to become white. They're very, very happy with their skin tone. This is just, I don't know, maybe it's projection by Ta-Nehisi Coates. I don't think very, very few people want to become another race. Most people don't think about becoming black or white or Asian. Is he the arbiter of what makes a black person sufficiently black? Yes, he is. Of course he is. Which brings us back to the question, why did Marvel Comics hire this man? Because Marvel Comics, one, is about propaganda, not money. They're not about merit or just writing fun escape. I mean, hey, it's a business. Business is number one, first and foremost, about making money. Second, it's about making some fun art and, selling something that people enjoy, having fun with it. I mean, it's a job, but it's still a fun job. It's not, you're not just making widgets. You're making, dreams and fantasies for kids, and you're growing up generations of new artists and writers. It's a weird job because comics it's an inspirational job. You inspire a lot of people. I mean, being a storyteller that is one of the oldest human professions, being the tribal storyteller around the fire. And to see it perverted by Marvel, God, this is such a great quote, and it's at 19 minutes, and nobody's going to listen to it. Damn it. It's a long article. This is probably long enough. This is on... Okay, so he tied it up. Here. This is by Jameson Ashley. It's on Bleeding Fool. Why Ta-Nehisi Coates, Steve Rogers fighting white racism again. Because nobody cares, nothing matters. We live in clown world. Derp to derp to derp derp derp. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see y'all next episode.